Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into one of the oldest, most intense strategic battlegrounds there is, the world of chess. We
Yeah.
got our hands on a pretty comprehensive guide, a stack of material, really, that claims to basically shortcut the whole learning process.
Right. It's not just about the rules. It promises to give you the key strategies, the advanced tactics, and even the psychological blueprint you need to become a really skilled player.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive isn't to teach you how the knight moves, it's to pull out those high-value strategic ideas, the things that will help you actually outsmart someone at the board.
And it covers a ton, from ancient history all the way to modern techniques like misdirection.
Okay, let's get into it.
Well, what's really compelling, I think, is how fast the source material moves beyond just defining the game.
Yeah.
It immediately frames chess as this contest of, strategy, skill, critical thinking.
You need patience, a lot of
It's
patience.
a lot of patience and persistence, yeah. It's presented less like a hobby and more like a rigorous mental discipline. For many, it's a way of life.
And that dedication, it has such a long legacy. I find it kind of comforting that we're tapping into centuries of knowledge. Our guide traces the game's origins all the way back to ancient India.
During the Gupta Empire, so we're talking about the 4th to 6th century AD.
And it wasn't even called chess, right? It was chaturanga, which apparently ties directly to military strategy.
Yeah, and it wasn't just some board game. This was played by nobility. It had real cultural weight. I mean, they believed it was invented by the gods. That tells you a lot about the kind of respect they had for it.
So how did it spread? It basically just follows world history. It moves through Persia, becomes shatranj, and this is where the Arab contributions really, they become foundational, don't they?
Absolutely. The Arabs introduced pieces that really ramped up the aggression and the mobility. The vizier eventually becomes our modern queen,
The most powerful piece on the
the
board.
most powerful piece, and the war machine becomes the rook. But I think, most importantly, they're the ones who solidified the concepts of check and checkmate. That set the permanent, decisive goal of the game.
Which turned it into the ultimate military simulation.
Exactly.
So we have this rich lineage. The rules get standardized around the 15th century, but it only really becomes a global competitive sport in the 20th century.
And that context matters. It shows that every move, every strategy we use today is built on just centuries of trial and error. But to master that, we have to get straight to the board.
Right. Let's assume everyone listening knows the 8x8 setup, light square on the right. Instead of just listing how pieces move, let's talk about their strategic value. For example, the king. The guide calls it the most important piece, but it only moves one square. Isn't the queen, who can go anywhere, really more important?
That's a great question. The king's value is kind of the inverse of its power. It's your core liability.
Okay.
So while the queen is definitely the most powerful piece, she can control a huge amount of territory in one move. The king's role is all about defense, not attack. It completely defines your development, especially through a key move called castling.
Let's talk about castling, because that can be confusing. How does it work, and what makes it such a powerhouse move?
So castling is the only move where two pieces move at the same time. The king moves two squares, not three, that's a common mistake, two squares toward a rook, and then that rook just leaps over to the square the king crossed.
And the strategic takeaway here, why do it?
It does three vital things in one go. First, it gets your vulnerable king out of the center of the board.
Where all the action is.
Exactly. Second, it develops your rook, bringing a major piece into the game instantly. And third, it just solidifies your whole position, creates a little fortress. And you can do it kingside or queenside, depending on your plan.
Okay, brilliant. Now let's talk about the pawns. They move forward one square, maybe two on the first move, capture diagonally. Simple. But the guide says the pawn structure is the foundation of the game. Why are these little guys so important?
They basically dictate the entire battlefield. They control the space your major pieces have to operate in. A good pawn structure controls those key central squares, d4, d5, e4, e5, and provides a stable support system for your knights and bishops.
In a bad structure?
A bad structure is devastating. The source specifically calls out isolated pawns.
A pawn with no friendly pawns next to it.
Right. It can't be defended by other pawns, and this becomes a massive long-term liability. That pawn is now a fixed target. It can be blockaded, attacked, and eventually it'll just be captured. It cripples your endgame.
So the pawns are really carving out the terrain. Okay, now let's get into the tactical toolkit. The aha moments that can win a game on the spot. Let's start with those special pawn rules. Promotion is easy enough. Get to the other side, get a new piece, usually a queen.
Right. Always a queen, unless you have a very rare knight checkmate situation.
Right.
But the really weird one is en passant.
The in-passing capture, it still feels like a cheat code to me.
It does. It only happens right after an opponent's pawn moves 2 squares forward from its start and lands right next to your pawn. You have one chance on your very next turn to capture it as if it had only moved 1 square.
And the strategic point is, what? To punish them.
It's an aggressive tool to punish an opponent for trying to rush their development past your control, and it's a fleeting opportunity. You miss it, it's gone forever.
Okay, now for the famous aggressive patterns. The pin, the fork, and the skewer. Let's break these down. The pin, what's its goal?
A pin is when you attack an opponent's piece, and right behind it, on the same line, is a more valuable piece. The goal is to immobilize that front piece.
Because if they move it, they lose the bigger piece behind it.
Exactly. You use it to neutralize a key defender or just set up to win material later.
And the fork, that one feels more direct.
Oh, absolutely. A fork is all about gaining material. You're attacking 2 or more pieces at the same time, usually with a knight or a queen. It creates this impossible choice for your opponent. They're forced to save one piece and just sacrifice the other.
This is why mastering the knight's weird L-shaped move is so important.
It's the master of the fork, for sure.
Okay, so if the pin is about freezing a piece and the fork is about overwhelming choice, what's the skewer?
The skewer is kind of like a reverse pin. You're attacking a valuable piece that's in front of a less valuable one.
Oh.
So that valuable piece, say a queen, is forced to move to safety. And when it does, it exposes the weaker piece behind it for you to capture.
And let's round out the tactics with the discovered attack.
This one is maybe the most elegant threat. You move a piece, maybe a knight, and by moving it, you uncover a line of attack from a more powerful piece behind it, like a rook or a queen.
So it's a double threat.
A good player makes it a double threat. The piece you moved also creates its own threat. So your opponent is suddenly trying to solve 2 immediate problems at once. They're paralyzed.
All these tactics, though, they have to serve a bigger purpose.
Yes, and that brings us back to the overarching strategy, controlling the center.
The 4 squares in the middle, d4, d5, e4, e5.
Exactly. If you control that area, your pieces have maximum mobility. They can get to either side of the board quickly. The source is clear. Every opening move should be about securing or challenging one of those 4 squares. If you give up the center, you're giving up the whole game.
This is where, for me, it gets really fascinating. The psychological game. Our guide makes it very clear that chess isn't just math. It's a psychological battle. You're playing the person, not just the pieces.
This is where you get into advanced play. A key technique is deception. Bluffing and misdirection.
How does that work on a chessboard?
Well, you create false expectations. For example, you might spend a few moves pushing pawns on the queen side, making your opponent think you're building up for a flank attack. That's your smoke screen. And once they commit their defensive pieces over there, you suddenly pivot and launch your real attack on the king side, where they're now totally exposed. You're using calculation to hide your real intention.
That sounds exhausting. But I can see how it would be critical. What about exploiting emotion? If I see my opponent is getting stressed, how do I actually use that?
You use time pressure, especially in a tournament with a clock. If you know your opponent is low on time, you don't always play the best move. You play the move that forces the most difficult, the most complex calculation.
You're trying to make them panic.
You're trying to make them lose focus from the anxiety. The guide says that the frustration and stress from time trouble is it's almost a guaranteed way to force mistakes.
Wow, and that all ties into just reading your opponent.
Constantly. You're always observing, are they making eye contact? Are they slumped over? Are they fidgeting, rushing their moves? This gives you insight into their confidence. If you sense they're an aggressive player, maybe you set up a strong defense and wait for them to overextend. If they seem tentative, you press the attack without mercy. Adaptability is the ultimate weapon.
So this deep dive makes it pretty clear. Becoming a really skilled player isn't just about memorizing rules. It's about synthesizing, 4 different elements. You have historical strategy, precise tactics,
long-term spatial planning, and then the ability to read and manipulate the person sitting across from you.
and you have to keep improving in all 4 areas.
It's non-negotiable. And that means honest post-game analysis. You have to go back and find exactly where you went wrong. Did you underestimate them? Did you ignore your pawn structure? Did you miss a simple fork?
Okay, so we know the objective of the game is checkmate. It's a technical victory. But after everything we've talked about today, from the deep history to the power of psychological manipulation, what's truly more valuable in a modern game? Is it mastering an ancient tactical pattern so you never, ever miss a fork? Or is it knowing exactly how to exploit your opponent's emotional state in the last 5 minutes on the clock? What stands out to you?